Hi there, I'm Chris from Soft Solutions, ManageEngine New Zealand, Solutions Delivery Manager responsible for the brand and Solutions Delivery in New Zealand. And I'm here to conduct a webinar on data security solutions, how organization can have a full control over their data visibility and the security. Let's get started with the webinar. Let me start off with the agenda first. So in this particular webinar, what we are going to cover is the solutions, how we can discover, how we can monitor and protect your business sensitive critical data. The way we can get it done is file server auditing. Obviously, all business organizations, they have their own file servers, how their data gets shared within the users and the external parties or internal parties, and about the data risk, where it's located, how it's located, who's accessing it, what's happening, all those insights. We're going to look into the use cases. And then comes the licensing part of it, and then I will give a heads up on how our solution, what platforms it supports, and how we can provision the solutions in the organizations. Right? Sweet. So our data security solution comes in three different categories. One is the file server auditing, which is pretty evident for any organization to audit their file servers. What it does, report, analyze, monitor, and alert on any critical activity that's happening in the file servers. Then we have to protect and prevent any data leak that's happening in the organization. So any data that is transferred to a printer or printed out or transferred to a USB, shared via email, etc. Those things needs to be tracked. We should avoid, prevent it. Then assessing your data. So where it's located, is it a stale data, or does it have confidential detail in it, and any personal identifier information. So you can classify your P2 categories, and then you can once you have control and governance over your data, then it's easy for us to take any kind of risk assessment and have a policy in place to protect confidential data. Yep. So with our file server auditing, the options, these are all the features that gets covered. So where we get a data visibility, how the data are getting visible. So audit all your file folder access, and any sort of because our application do maintain a known a database of any known threats. So any detect and shut down any potential ransomwares, any sort of correlation that happening similar to the attack thing that can remediate the options accordingly. And then you can trigger instant alerts based on a specific activity if there is a sudden spike in a file folder getting encrypted or modified. So all of a sudden somebody is accessing, say, 100 files in the same time, and that's humanly not possible. So that needs to be alerted. And all these features, all this happening in real time. And any copy and paste. So say, for example, if there is a rogue employee or employee who was terminated or offboarded from the organization in not a good way, then he's a potential threat because he might know all the credentials and stuff. He can go rogue and he can start copying all the confidential data, or he can delete the data of an organization that is very sensitive, and that can impact organizations or brand, or it can impact their productivity or their revenue, or you can stole the potential competitor, or you can sell it to the competitor, the leads and other stuff. So these are all the risk that's involved in any organizations. How we can protect it? Pretty much, we should know if somebody is performing any such things. We should get alerted and take immediate action accordingly, or we should give them appropriate privileged elevation or appropriate access control so that they don't access those details. That needs to be configured in their offboarding process. But having said that, this particular solution very focused on your data visibility and the security aspects. And then what if something happened, somebody did something, and we have to investigate who did what, why, what, when it happened. Then the forensics can be done with our tool. So we get an actionable, accurate, and audit data across all anomalies. And the other aspect of file analysis, that's the other aspect of the solution that's coming as a separate application. What it does is it analyzes the file, uh, any kind of redundant or stale files or duplicate files that's chewing up our storage space can be sorted out, and you can optimize the disk space usage, because if a data, if a duplicate data or a backup that's keep growing, and that's going to cost to the concern or cost to the company, then that can be avoided. So any stale data that has some confidential details can be a potential risk. And with the file analysis, we can identify and take appropriate actions accordingly. And then we can understand who has what permissions. Access level controls can be identified, and you can reset the access controls for those particular files, who has access to what files and all this. Hope this explains about our file security auditing feature of our solution. Then comes our data leak preventions. Under data leak preventions, pretty much we don't want our data to get leaked out in any means. Yes, nowadays we have mobile endpoints and other things where we can take screenshots, snapshots, and blah blah blah. But still, having said that, from the organization level, what sort of controls we can put? So it's good to know before it happens. So we need to monitor and track and analyze proactively. And if something happens which is not right to the organization, we should have an alert that can be achieved. And a lot of training. So based on the application, we get an insight what is our current culture, who's accessing what. So we understand anomaly of how our organization work, how the data is getting transmitted, how they are sharing documents with their customers, with their peers, or what they are using. Is it their teams, or are they using emails quite heavily? Are they using mobile? uh, those sort of understanding we will get out of those insights we will get um, from the solution, and then we can create and train user awareness. And we can block, delete, and quarantine any files based on a predefined active remediations that's available with the tool. And the applications, what we do support is Outlook, removal storages like USB, SD cards, cameras, mobile phones, etc., and virtual desktops, any of your virtual devices, and laptops, desktops, others, print, clipboard, packs, and network shares. It's pretty much a quite common thing. An employee can, potentially leak the data, so that can be prevented with our solution. Then our data risk assessment. The risk assessment, what we can do is understanding where our data, how our data is stacked up in our organization. So how many locations are available, what data is located in which location, and is it confidential? Yes, no. Is it P2? Or does it have any sort of compliancy requirement? Are we using a credit card transaction? Is it a e-commerce site that needs to comply with PCI DSS compliances or SOX compliances? Then accordingly we need to maintain the data. And nobody wants their data to get breached, and if it gets breached, then it becomes nasty. So we wanted to avoid that situation at all cost. The way we can get it done is with our tool, we can understand where our data is located, and you can also plan your capacity. How's your data growing, and is it having any sort of sensitive content in it, and any compliance report that you need to get it out, then you can get it out of the data risk assessment module within the application. In terms of file server auditing use case, so what's that's pretty much the real use case. So discover who is having what sort of permissions in their NTFS and share permissions. It's quite critical. And examine what sort of file folders that have same level of permissions. If not, we need to go revise our fine-grained control, role-based access control, and monitor and alert any sort of objects or access types or any user and abnormal user activities. So there will be a normal user activity. Somebody breaches that, or something out of normal, then we need to get alert and take appropriate action accordingly. So that's where we assist with the file server auditing use cases. And this is pretty much a big nightmare for any admins when top management or the stakeholders asking, hey, what's happening to this? We were working on this and we need this data right now. And who done this? Who accessed this particular data? Somebody deleted it, or somebody moved a file from one location to the other location, and they don't know where it is. How we can find it all? So based on specific file integrity monitoring. So if there is a HR confidential or a corporate confidential, if you're working on some tenders and stuff, then that can be categorized as file integrity monitoring with location, file location. It adopts to the file structure. And based on that, if anybody, say it can be trusted users who need to have access to it, but we should know what's happening, what Kris is doing, what Kris A and Kris B is doing on that particular folder. So those sort of reports we can get it with a file integrity monitoring. And say if we have a folder that's not supposed to be accessed by XYZ individuals, if there is an access from this particular department to that particular folder or file, then we need an immediate alert to take appropriate action. So those things can be done. And so pretty much tracking the source and host, and we can use this tool for more forensics analysis as well. Yeah. And the best part is about the ransomware quarantine. This is part of the product module features. So you can detect and respond to any ransomware attacks instantaneously. So the application do maintain a database of any known threats and facts, and any kind of anomalies or any sort of known attacks. So detect ransomware attack faster with the auto-update ransomware file tape library available within the tool. And if there is a machine that is detected, then we can automatically shut it down with pre-configured custom scripts. So you can configure a script like PowerShell scripts, pretty much get the network down, or disconnect that system from the network and stuff like that, and track the IP and host details so used in forensics and take appropriate legal actions accordingly. And data discovery and risk assessment. So you can locate and analyze high risk content across your environment. So any file folders contains a specific keyword like credit card. You need to identify the any file folder location that contains name, email ID stuff. We need to protect it, convert it, tag it as P2, and gain visibility into the personal data like name, any sort of confidential details about the person, personal informations, location, and other sensitive information about your staff, your customers, your clients can be tagged, and we get a visibility to locate and analyze the risk. And we can also create some filters and stuff to identify and specific criteria based on specific policies and rules. So you can set it up. Hey, if there is a file with this particular details or this particular entry, then I need to identify where it is, what it is, so that I can move it in a particular appropriate location and stuff like that. Because again, in an organization too, whereas human people do mistakes, but the solution helps us in making a system and help us avoiding that particular mistake, not giving an opportunity for your staff to make that mistakes. That's where this tool helps you. And also monitor who's accessing what sort of data. So there is a SOX compliance. Obviously, we don't want any of our credit card details and other things stored anywhere. So if there is any, then that is a kind of a breach which needs to be addressed right away. So those sort of compliances can be monitored, and if there is, then we can mitigate it accordingly. So monitor who accessed any sort of personal data, or if they downloaded or shared, or if they are trying to do something, then we get to know those details right away. Sweet. And about our storage analysis, discard any sort of redundant stale data, and you can free up your space. So once your data if your space is freed up, then that's helps us to increase the capacity. So, and also the application helps us to forecast, so understand how our growth is. So again, based on the insight that we do get from the storage analysis, so we can understand how a data structure, if any particular file or folder not touched for more than 6 months to 1 year, put it into a kind of a cold storage somewhere, doesn't impact the actual active folder location that people use to access this quite often. If not, archive the data, put it in a kind of a cold or semi-cold kind of a situation so that you manage your cost and storage and access availability accordingly. And yeah, pretty much based on file size, owner, object type. These are all the quite common things, mostly the business needs know. And also we want to know who's the culprit, right? So who's filling up the data really quick? All of a sudden, somebody dumped in like a huge file in a file share, and that can be a huge impact to an organization. So there might be some important business meeting, might be a multi-million dollar deal that needs to be get signed, and they are trying to access the contract, not available because somebody jammed the file server with unwanted data. So these sort of situations can be totally avoided with our solution. Sweet. And the other aspects of our application is out-of-box compliance. So you can get compliance with SOX. Out-of-box compliance is available: GDPR, PCI DSS compliance, and ISO compliance. If you guys need to create some sort of custom compliance report based on your internal auditors and external auditors, then that can be achieved by creating a report, because the application do have a database, so you have full access to the table schema. You can get the query reports done based on the requirements. Sweet. And the licensing model is pretty straightforward. So file server auditing include file analysis capacity, but the way it gets licensed is slightly different, the way we need it. Then the data leak prevention model comes in based on the number of endpoints that needs to be audited, so that if anything happened to that audited device, then that gets tracked. But if it's an unaudited device introduced and used, that's something that an organization needs to take a a core and have all their endpoints monitored as well. So that's quite crucial point, because demand controller, the directory services, it's inside your networks. That's pretty much protected. It's within your phone. Whereas your endpoints or workstations, there with your staff, taking it, roaming around, traveling around within your office or outside your office network, connecting via VPN and other sources. So those are all the endpoints are prone to attack. They are more vulnerable. So those endpoints needs to be, a workstation needs to be audited and protected as well. Then your data risk assessment, it's purely based on the amount of data. And let's have a look how it's getting categorized. Then the supported platforms, it's pretty much any Windows file server, 2003 R2 and above. And in data leak preventions, again, it's Windows-based, very Windows-based specific platform, Windows Vista and above. And risk assessment, again, Windows file server from 2003 and above. So that's the end of our webinar today for data security solutions, about having control, gain visibility of your data, and how you can secure your data. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at sales@manageengine.co.nz. I'm available in LinkedIn. You can reach out to our ManageEngine New Zealand user group, and reach out to us from our website. We have a contact us form, and our team, amazing team, are more than happy to assist with. Much appreciated.